Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Executive Insight with Rover. I'm Dan Kaufman with Sports Business Journal. We are here at SBJ Tech Week, and I'm joined by John Coombs, who's the CEO of Rover, and James Ruth, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us. Here.
John, I'm going to flip it to you. Very quickly, tell us what Rover does.
Yeah, I mean, we exist in the category of mobile marketing automation is, a way you might place it, but really we're about helping teams connect with fans in a one-to-one and automated way. So we do that primarily in the mobile app or on mobile, and really make what is historically been an unscalable and labor-intensive process a lot more automated and scalable. And that, drives outcomes like fan experience improvement, member retention, ticket sales, and other marketing outcomes.
We talked a lot about in our prep for this personalization. That was a big word, membership personalization. Both of you guys, what does that word mean to you in the context of what you do? James, I'll start with you, then we can flip it to.
Yeah, I think for us, we're constantly trying to figure out how do we create very specific narratives and opportunities for engagement with our fans, right? We obviously have a huge fan base. It's the NFL, it's football in Florida, and that's fantastic. But for us to be able to improve the quality of connection and the level of fandom that our fans have, they need to feel like they have a unique connection. And so that's something that we're constantly thinking about at the base of our brand, of how we make fans feel unique and seen by what we're doing. But obviously permeating from that is what technology and platforms like Rover can we use to better personalize our communications with fans? Because it's not a matter today of just being able to communicate with people. We've got a number of different channels to be able to do that. It's about the quality of the communication and what we're actually delivering to them.
How is Rover helping do that? Quality, consistency, talk us through that.
Number of different ways. John's a fantastic partner with us and a lot of things that we do across push and so on and so forth. I think for us, knowing that we've got a certain subset of our audience that's on app that we can reach with that platform, how are we thinking through not just kind of a broad-based strategy of communications, but really trying to think through with every communication that we make, what is that node of information that we can leverage to segment and then ultimately personalize? And we know empirically, right, the degree of segmentation that we do in our communications, that's going to drive up the engagement. There's a balance to that, right? We have to balance how segmented we get and how manual that process is and all of that sort of stuff. But we know for a fact, the more segmented we get, the more personalized we get, the engagement goes up, and then ultimately conversion goes up for us.
John, would you add to that? Maybe work through with the Bucs or with other clubs as well?
Yeah, no, I think that James said it really well. I think it's about being able to cater an experience that is unique to that fan. It may be their first game, it may be their 100th game. And so, the more you're aware of that, the more you can elevate that experience for them by surfacing the content and the information that's relevant. And, when going to a game, it can be daunting if you've never been to a venue of that capacity, and all the sort of utility of what do I do, where do I go can be really important. And again, if you're a veteran, you don't need that stuff. You're looking for other things. And, it's being able to craft a one-to-one experience is ultimately the gold standard. I think we're trying to push the industry for.
How do you take that personalization and all that data that you collect and then convert it into revenue? Like, how do you think about that from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a really simple example. Yeah. We had a player in Bucky Irving last year that really burst onto the scene. I think we felt good about him because we drafted him. Obviously, that's all credit to Jason Light and the team. But 4th round draft pick coming in and, performed really well in training camp, but ultimately had a breakaway season. Okay, great. And a couple breakaway games. Well, how do we make sure that we leverage that moment that's happening on the field to create a custom communication with our fans, particularly the ones that have raised their hand and in some way in their communications with us highlighted that they are a budding fan of Bucky Irving, and then be able to super serve them with a jersey opportunity, right? Okay, Bucky's had a breakaway game. He's just hit 1,000 yards. Let's get a dedicated communication to people to let them know Bucky Irving jerseys are available, buy now. And I think that is a really, really simple example of something that we're consistently trying to do at scale. Take what's happening on the field or other moments around the stadium experience, understand what our fans want, what those sort of different points of, where they are in the stadium, their favorite player, and then try and make communications that marry the two so that we can be as specific as possible.
Are there examples from other industries that you have taken inspiration from? Are there industries that are doing it maybe better than sports is and we need to learn more from them? Any examples from you, James, and then John, anything to add?
There's not a particular industry that I think of. I think one of the challenges that we deal with that maybe other industries don't have to deal with is we've got a resource consideration, right? There's only so many people on the BI team. There's only so many people on the digital ops team that can be segmenting and then sending these communications. So to make sure that we're using the best use of our time and our resource from a personnel perspective, to make sure that when we do these communications, they've got a line of sight to ultimately conversion and revenue. And I think we've been able to do that, and having partners like Rover that help with that automation piece, help with segmenting our fan base and making sure that each communication that we do is the smartest possible communication that we can make, right?
Anything to add to that, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have one of the benefits of being sports exclusive in terms of our customer base. So when it comes to the things we integrate with, the data sources that we want to make easy for clubs to activate on, we can do that, and that's really important for us. And James touched on this idea of player performance and what might that do for a marketing outcome. What's a big area for us is thinking about passion moments. We know if on-field performance, a specific player can be a big catalyst to ROI for a marketing conversion. So that's a big piece. And I think to answer your question earlier about sort of other industry and how we can sort of upskill ourselves in terms of the industry and making that fan experience differentiated. It's trying to get away from this idea of, being a member who's a number and being a member who feels a direct connection with the club. We know that, season ticket member churn in many cases is perhaps a phone call away or, some personal touch or some sort of element of connection versus feeling like a number. And so the more we can sort of surface that one-to-one, going back to the personalization bit, we can have hard impact on churn or membership retention.
Anything to add to that, James? Go ahead.
I think John hit on something that's really important, which is really, as we think about our season ticket base and then our single game buyers, constantly being focused and hellbent on that value proposition piece. One of the value propositions that we can deliver is a sense of personalization, right? And that's one of the great benefits of all of this data that we have coming in. How can we work with partners like Rover to ultimately maximize that data and create personalized experiences so that people feel seen, they feel a unique relationship with the club, and then ultimately they feel that value proposition, which is going to make them either come back for more single games in the future or ultimately level up into being a season ticket buyer.
AI is still buzzy, artificial intelligence, rightfully so. How do you guys approach it in your individual spaces? How do you approach using AI in an effective way, a practical way, maybe not just like hey, of course we're using AI because we have to say we're using AI because that's what everyone's talking about. John, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, I think, there's sort of two pillars in how we think about it based on what we do. Obviously, the first is in the realm of thinking about the segmentation strategy. And, like we're talking about in sports, we don't have a lot of bandwidth as, when it comes to marketing and creating audiences and segments. And, and ultimately a segment may only be a segment of 20 people. And does it really make sense to manually put the effort in to create that? Well, I think that's where AI can step in a lot, which is to do smart segmentation, smart propensity models to ultimately say, hey, this group of fans is most likely to, enjoy or engage with X. Let's deliver that. And so that's something that we're actively working with in terms of, where it can apply to what we do. I think the concept of generative content is probably still a little bit farther away. It's out of the comfort zone, right? It's, you've got so much tied up in a brand and a voice, and to sort of not have that, being, let's say, controlled by a human at this point, it feels a bit farther away.
Okay. James, what would you add?
Similar answer to John. I think there's so many things that we do where we have a point of view, we have a North Star of how we want to automate things or how we want to deliver content and communications to fans. And a lot of that stuff is still more manual than it feels like it needs to be, based on how close we are to AI really jumping in and sort of automating that entire process and doing a lot of not only the think work, but the segmentation work and the execution work out of the mix. So really excited for what it can mean for us to ultimately deliver that more personalized experience for people.
Yeah. We're at SBJ Tech Week, and we're asking all people who take the stage at SBJ Tech Week a few now, soon, never questions. So I'm going to get to those in just a second. They'll be rapid fire. Before I do, though, I want to give you guys each a chance to tell us what's next. What do you see in the future? John, go ahead.
I think that there's the future of the industry and there's the future of our business, but I think that's almost tied together. I think our role is to help push, organizations and work with organizations to do a lot of what we're talking about today, to set the bar higher for personalization, for automation, make it easier to sort of deliver on the promise that we all talk about. We've been a lot of conferences, and personalization and 360 views of the fan has been talked about for a long time. I think we're on the precipice of truly making it real. And I think it takes, industry efforts to sort of push that. And so I think the future is actually realizing the narratives that we've talked about for so long. I think we're very close as an industry, and I'm excited for that.
Thank you, John. James.
Yeah, a similar sort of thinking. I think one thing for us at the Bucs that we're really trying to do is evolve from a brand that's maybe on a hill to a brand that is really having a closer connection with fans. And not only, having fans come into the stadium and have a great experience, but creating a brand where people feel like they're being seen and they're not only there to experience it, but they're part of the larger culture. And that sounds like a lot of brand gobbledygook, but ultimately at the end of the day, personalization and data and digital and everything that we're talking about here are going to be our avenues to be able to execute on that, so that the communications that we're making with fans feel ultra personal, but we're also creating avenues for them to feel more ownership in our journey as a team, right?
All right, now, soon, never, rapid fire. You ready? We got 2 of them. Now, soon, never, at least one of the major North American sports leagues will license their video libraries to a generative AI company. I'll start here.
Probably soon. Yeah.
Okay, soon.
Also think soon.
All right. Now, soon, never, we will see a sporting event where more than 50% of fans who enter the venue will do so using biometric technologies.
Yeah, absolutely soon. Yeah.
Yeah, soon.
75%?
75 or higher.
All right.
Feels like it.
All right, great. This has been your SBJ Executive Insight with Rover. I'm Dan Kaufman.